Continuing from the previous episode 30. The second day. Wucheng, in front of the main hall, many servants are also looking up to the sky. In the towering pavilion, a vigorous red fighting chi rises into the sky. The fighting chi is like a brilliant sun, exuding extremely hot fluctuations, and even the air is scorching hot. Burned and twisted. Congratulations to send your son off. I wish you a successful return. Many voices came from below. Huh. The red fighting chi roared out, like a cloud of fire, and on the cloud of fire, a slender figure stood with his hands behind his back. With a look of contempt, he ignored the many people who saw him off, and just turned his eyes to a certain room in the depths of the mansion. After a while, he withdrew his gaze, no longer hesitated, stepped on the red grudge, and disappeared into the sky amid all the attention. Sword King City. Beneath a lonely peak like a blade. A figure walked out of the mountain step by step. As he got closer, he realized that it was a young man in a gray robe. However, there was a black cloth wrapped around his eyes, invisible. There was a frightening aura. Behind him is a black sword. The black sword is simple, as if it has no front, but there is an astonishing sword energy, which radiates out. The stones on the ground where he walked are all cracked quietly, and the fracture was as smooth as a mirror. He raised his head, his eyes, which were covered by the black cloth, seemed to be directed to a distant place. The land of ruins, he murmured, his voice extremely hoarse. I need a real opponent to sharpen my sword. That Zhanqi and that Wawan from Wucheng should be good opponents, right? Hearing the words in his mouth, the black sword behind him vibrated slightly, as if he couldn't wait to compete with the top figures among his peers. City of 10,000 beasts. Roar. There was a deafening beast roar resounding from the city, and then people in the whole city saw a huge winged beast flapping its wings and soaring into the air. On top of the winged beast, a delicate young girl was sitting on her knees. Her long green hair and her eyes were full of agility and a quirky appearance. On her tender shoulders, an ice blue bird was beating and chirping, and there seemed to be boundless coldness in the pair of bird pupils. Hee, Xiaohan, we can finally go out to play. The girl touched the bird, her face full of excitement. I heard that the ruins are really fun. I went to a lot of great people. Hee, no one of the same generation in the city of 10,000 beasts can beat us. I hope those guys won't be too boring. Let's go. The girl shouted loudly, and the winged beast let out a low roar, its wings vibrated, its speed skyrocketed, and the wind flew away. Bang, bang, bang. In a city, a bald man dashed out from the city wall, and a long spear stood out behind him. The great fortune is mine. The bald head shouted and disappeared like a ghost, apparently rushing to the ruins. Boom. In a martial arts courtyard, the violent fighting chi burst out and swept across, sending dozens of figures flying upside down in embarrassment. Ha. You are too weak. It's boring. Tell my father. I'm going to the ruins. It's boring to stay here. In that chaos, there was only one figure standing in the field. His body was strong, like an iron tower. Like a ferocious ape, he grinned and laughed at the crowd, then without any hesitation, he stomped the soles of his feet, and his figure rose into the sky. After a few jumps, he disappeared. Looking at his leaving figure, everyone in the Martial Arts Institute breathed a sigh of relief, and then burst into cheers. This monster has finally left. Finally, I don't have to suffer from him anymore. Those guys who go to the ruins are probably going to be out of luck. Once they are entangled by this lunatic, they will be finished. To the north of Qingcheng, there is a snowy family. Miss, the time has come. The master asked me to inform you that you can leave. Outside a fragrance pavilion, a maid's careful voice sounded. Inside the incense pavilion, on the soft bed, a snow-white body was wrapped in a thin quilt, but even so, it still outlined that extremely enchanting curve. Hearing the sound, the person in the quilt sat up, the quilt slipped off, and suddenly revealed a delicate body like mutton fat, with long hair hanging down in front of him, covering the thrilling plumpness. Come in. She raised her little face, only to see that her little face was extremely charming, like a goblin, which made people's hearts skip a beat. A maid carefully pushed the door and came in, seeing the asterisk person on the bed. Even as a woman, she couldn't help but turn her gaze on the extremely domineering figure. The maid entered the room, fetched her clothes, and waited on her to get dressed. The long black skirt covered her body, which highlighted her exquisite figure, which was slender and plump. The curve alone was enough to attract all the attention. He. Thank you, Zalbi. Tell my father that when I go out this time, I will definitely find him a perfect son-in-law to come back. The little demon girl grinned and sweetened the maid's face. Miss, the master said that we must obtain good fortune. The maid reminded helplessly. What kind of good fortune can be better and more worry-free than finding a good husband? The woman in the colorful skirt blinked and giggled. Link to OK www.novelmtl.com. Let's go. But she didn't laugh too much. She waved her little hand and moved her delicate body, only to see her figure appearing and disappearing from time to time. After a few breaths, she disappeared into the distance. The maid looked at her ghostly movement and couldn't help but sighed in admiration. Mrs. Movement skills are among the top among the peers in the Xuanling continent. This is a gloomy place where bones are buried. White bones are piled up in the mountains, and the whole world is filled with death. Click. Suddenly, a voice came from the mountain, and I saw a group of people walking out. The pedestrian steps were stiff, their bodies were blue, and their eyes were empty. When they looked carefully, they found that they didn't have the slightest vitality. Like the living dead, they carried a large sedan chair on their shoulders, and the sedan body was white, but on it, there was a pattern of ghost faces dripping with blood, exuding a sinister and eerie atmosphere. A cloudy wind whistled, and the white curtains were rolled up. Under the white curtain, a young face that was pale and bloodless emerged. His eyes were gray, and his body seemed to be wrapped in the aura of death, which made people shudder. 100 ghosts carry the sedan chair. The white sedan chair went away, as if there was a cold voice coming from far away. Yu Wang Xing, living people avoid. At the same time, in the entire Xuanling continent, many famous geniuses have come from all over the world, and their goals are all the same, all pointing to the land of relics in the center of the continent. So, in the entire Xuanling continent, countless gazes came together. Everyone wants to know how wonderful it will be when these many proud young heroes collide together. But no matter what, the current ruins have become the focus of the entire continent. Continuing from the previous episode 31, the originally peaceful Warcraft Mountains outside Qingcheng instantly became lively, because everyone knew that the ruins cave hidden in the Warcraft Mountains was about to open. Let's stop here for a while and buy some rations for Xiao Yi, said a man with a dark and heavy ruler on his back. After a day's rush, Xiao Yan and Yueru also came to a supply point on the outskirts of the demonic beast mountains, waiting for the ruins to open. Since Xiao Yan knew that Xiao Yi was a fire elf, in order to prevent others from knowing, he also specially refined a 6th-order transformation pill for Xiao Yi, so that he could change the shape, and now it completely presents Xiao Yi as a small beast. Is also extraordinarily cute and cruel. However, it is strange to say that Xiao Yi does not refuse fire-type medicinal herbs or medicinal materials, and his appetite has greatly increased, which is why Xiao Yan's move. Xiao Yan caught Xiao Yi from the shoulders. One person and one beast stared with big eyes, and finally Xiao Yan nodded helplessly, and after instructing Yueru, he turned around and went to other areas to buy supplies. This is a supply point outside the demonic beast mountains. Many healing medicines and necessary things can be bought. In the supply area, Xiao Yan found a maid, and after explaining everything he needed, the latter asked him to sit down for a while and went to prepare. So, Xiao Yan sat here bored and waited while holding Xiao Yi, who was full of disgust with the look of this phantom beast. However, while waiting, Xiao Yan suddenly noticed a strange gaze, and immediately turned around with his brows slightly wrinkled, and then was stunned for a moment. Because he saw, not far behind him, a pretty girl with long green hair, staring at him with big eyes, and even a sliver of saliva fell from her small mouth. Xiao Yan was inexplicably seen by the green-haired girl, and just wanted to get up. At this time, the green-haired girl also walked up quickly, so Xiao Yan realized that her eyes were not looking at him, but at Xiao Yi in his arms. What are you doing? Xiao Yan looked at the green-haired girl vigilantly. The green-haired girl wiped away the crystal saliva from the corner of her mouth. Her asterisk and white eyes burst out with extreme scorching emotions. She stared at Xiao Yi, and her delicate voice made people shiver. Little brother, sell this little beast to me. No matter how much money, no matter what the price, I'm willing. Buy Xiao Yi? Xiao Yan frowned slightly, then said decisively, don't sell it. Xiao Yan shook his head and refused neatly. He knew how cruel this little thing was in his arms, so he was sure that as long as he dared to nod, this little beast would slap him directly with one paw and slap him alive. When the green-haired girl saw Xiao Yan's rejection, she was a little anxious, and hurriedly said, "Little brother, sell it to me. I will give you 5 million gold coins. Even if it's an immortal rank fighting skill." Gritting his teeth, he looked at Xiao Yi in Xiao Yan's arms. She stared intently at Xiao Yi's eyes, as if she saw through the phantom shape at a glance, full of incomparable enthusiasm, because others could not feel Xiao Yi's power, but she had a unique way to know Xiao Yi in front of her. What an amazing little beast. 5 million gold coins? Immortal rank fighting skills? Xiao Yan was obviously also shocked by the generosity of the girl in front of him. You must know that 5 million gold coins is not a small amount, and that immortal level fighting skill is even more priceless. Xiao Yan carefully looked at the girl in front of her. From the green-haired girl's frantic eyes, it was obvious that she was not talking big, but that she was really able to come up with this huge sum of money. But Xiao Yan still refused. Don't be hungry. Just because Xiao Yi has been with him for so long, it has already become a brotherhood, and besides, Xiao Yi still has the identity of a fire elf. Or take a step back and say, Xiao Yi, however, those with unlimited potential can now rival the powerhouses of the 3-star Do-Di in their infancy. After that, that's great. She was repeatedly rejected, and the green-haired girl stomped her feet in a hurry. Her fair forehead was sweating in a hurry. She looked down at her small hand that was as clean as jade. There was a light pattern on the back of her hand. Now this light pattern is exuding extremely intense burning sensation. This light pattern can sense the bloodline of the source beast. The stronger the bloodline, the more scorching the light pattern will be. And the burning sensation right now, even when she got Xiao Han, never appeared. In other words, the little beast in front of him, in terms of bloodline, is even stronger than her, Xiao Han, who has some Bingfeng bloodline. For her, this is simply an unparalleled attraction. Xiao Yan looked at this pattern and suddenly remembered it. The transplant technique of the Mo family on Do-Chi continent is to transfer some Chi people's strange objects to himself, such as eyes and arms. She couldn't help but be a little more vigilant towards the woman in front of her, and seemed to sense the green-haired girl's intentions. Reading www. Link to youcanshu.com. The clothes in her arms moved, and then an ice blue bird emerged from her neckline with a bird's head, and the bird's eyes looked at Zhou Yuan with an extremely cold air. The surrounding air is beginning to show signs of freezing. And when the icy blue bird appeared, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly froze, his brows trembled, obviously aware of a very strong threat, and he immediately looked at the icy blue bird with a solemn expression, and then obviously, it is not simple. This girl is even more difficult. Xiao Yan's eyes were alert. He was able to carry such a powerful little beast with him. It seemed that the other party was not an ordinary person. In Xiao Yan's arms, Xiao Yi's squinted animal pupils also opened a little, swept the icy blue bird. The beast's mouth opened slightly, there was a faint jump of black light, and a low roar came from its throat. Out. Obviously, it sensed the hostility that the icy blue bird was showing towards Xiao Yan. Facing Xiao Yi's warning roar, the icy blue bird also trembled, hesitated for a few breaths, and then slowly retracted her head again. The green-haired girl looked at the strongest, Xiao Han, and she was shocked. Her little face suddenly collapsed. It seemed that being hard won't work, so she looked at Xiao Yan pitifully. Xiao Yan flashed a thought in his heart, stroked Xiao Yi in his arms, and finally shook his head and said, "Since you can see how extraordinary it is, you should also know that it is priceless. I won't sell it. So don't think about it anymore." After Xiao Yan finished speaking, there was also a maid who had prepared all the things he had purchased before. "If you don't sell me, I'll follow you," the girl in front of her stubbornly said to Xiao Yan. Continuing from the previous episode 32. Xiao Yan also found the girl who was following him, and immediately took Yueru around a few times to get rid of the girl. "Oh, I'm so off. Why did I lose it? That little beast is really powerful." The girl stomped her feet when she realized that she was very embarrassed by Xiao Yan. According to Yueru, the demonic beast mountains outside Qingcheng, also known as the Ice and Snow Mountains, should be the most majestic mountain range Xiao Yan has seen in so many years. The thick cloud and mist shrouded most of the mountain range, making it difficult for people to see what it contained. Moreover, There seemed to be an extremely vast energy contained in the cloud and mist. Under this huge energy, even Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel a little chilled. No wonder no one dared to fly in from a high altitude. The road in the sky is simply a dead end. Standing high in the sky, looking down at the entry point of the mountain range below, and looking at the nearly dense sea of pitch black, Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel a little scalp tingling. Although he knew that the so-called great creation's temptation would certainly not be small, when he saw such a huge after the crowd, he was still astonished. To get a pitifully small chance from these countless people, this difficulty is really not ordinary. With a wry smile, Xiao Yan took Yu Ru and Xiao Yi on his shoulders to choose a remote place, then lowered his body and jumped off the mountain. In a few flashes, a treetop appeared outside the snow mountain range. Above, his eyes seemed to swipe, and he found that there were actually many people sitting cross-legged on the tops of the surrounding trees. Because the ice and snow mountains are surrounded by clouds and mist all year round, and there are many powerful monsters, there are only 3 safe entry points, and the place where Xiao Yan is now is one of them, but the current entrance has been blocked. Occupied by a sea of people. Just when Xiao Yan was sighing secretly at this huge scene, a clear and loud crane chirping suddenly resounded from the distant sky, and immediately attracted countless gazes around him. Xiao Yan also followed his gaze, only to see in the distance, a giant crane with colorful energy, flapping its giant wings, swiftly flying towards one of the 3 entrances of the ice and snow mountains, the sun shining on the colorful crane. On the feathers, the reflections are dazzling and brilliant. Has the seal finally weakened? Xiao Yan looked at the energy storm at the entrance and couldn't help but ask. The next time was spent waiting as always, and when this kind of waiting lasted for nearly 3 days, the energy between this world suddenly became turbulent. At the moment when the energy of the earth just changed, Xiao Yan, who was sitting cross-legged on the top of the tree, suddenly opened his slightly closed eyes, and a strange look flashed past his eyes. Is it finally time to start? Huge mountains shrouded in mist. At this moment, just like an ancient beast that is about to wake up, a series of low rumbling sounds came from the high sky of the mountain range, and accompanied by this loud noise, there was also the overwhelming energy. Wow! In the dense cloud and mist, the vast energy surged rapidly, and at the end, there was even the sound of waves like the surging of the ocean waves. This strange scene made many people exclaim in amazement. Nature is indeed full of wonders. The huge energy tide, accompanied by surging, after a while, actually rushed out of the cloud and mist, and quickly spread out, scaring some figures who stayed in the sky hurriedly swept down. If they were caught by the terrifying energy tide sweeping in, even a strong Btth2 would have to peel off his skin if he didn't die. The huge energy tide turns into colorful colors. Under the sunlight, it is like a spacious and colorful river. Hanging across the sky, it is extremely gorgeous, but under this gorgeousness, there is a deadly crisis hidden. Huge waves of colorful energy continued to spread out from the mountain range. At this moment, many people could feel that the energy in the ice and snow mountain range gradually became violent and majestic. It looks like the ice and snow mountains have turned into a magnet, attracting all the energy between the nearby heaven and earth. Facing such a spectacular scene, even Xiao Yan couldn't help but be filled with astonishment. With his extraordinary soul perception, he could feel more clearly that the energy in the colorful tide had reached a certain level. What a terrifying level! As expected of the Btth2 continent of the upper plane, such a marvelous scene, how can you see it in other places? With a chuckle, Xiao Yan stood up and turned his eyes to the ice and snow mountains. At this moment, the energy in the mountains has grown to an astonishing level. It would not take too long to cultivate here, but it is sure to get twice the result with half the effort. No wonder so many people are still attracted after knowing that the big opportunity cannot be snatched. Let's practice some ideas. His eyes shifted from the mountain range, and finally stopped at the place where the mountain range entered. There, the huge sea of people has begun to move. No matter where it is, the first one always has special benefits. The one who enters it will have the best effect, so everyone wants to be the luckiest first. Looking at the sea of people, Xiao Yan smiled slightly, and there was a hint of fiery in his eyes. This time, the big chance battle was somewhat beyond his expectations. Presumably this competition will be quite exciting, and he also want to try it, this young generation near Qingcheng in the Xuanling continent. What step can we really reach? How much difference is there between you and them? Boom! While Xiao Yan's thoughts were turning, a burst of chaotic and loud footsteps and loud roars suddenly sounded, and even when he saw the huge sea of people, it suddenly roared and moved, turning into a stream of people, rushing into the mountain range crazily. Yueru, go to the ruins and follow me closely. Let's go to your destination first. As for the chance, there is no hurry. Although this great chance has a huge temptation, it also has a fatal threat. Xiao Yan Shen said. Yueru was also aware of Xiao Yan's plan, so she couldn't help but nodded somewhat moved, and said, everything is up to you. For a while, the entire periphery of the ice and snow mountains became violent at this moment. Because everyone present knew that the so-called great fortune would be gone when it was too late. Thinking of heaven and hell, the great opportunity is right in front of you, and maybe there is the incomparable attraction of the Xuanling royal family. How can the people present not be moved by it? Continuing from the previous episode 33. Inside the ice and snow mountains, the temperature is low, and the fog is lingering. The fog is mixed with a little violent energy, which greatly restricts people's sight. In the quiet mountain range, two figures broke through the woods and swept in, and immediately landed lightly, revealing a young face, which was Xiao Yan. Let's go this way. Xiao Yan. Yueru pointed the way. Xiao Yan and Xiao Yi also turned their heads when they heard the words. The most important thing now is to go to the place that Yueru said, and don't worry about that big opportunity. What is Miss Yueru looking for? Xiao Yan also asked curiously. Although Yueru's father, Yueyu, said that she was looking for something in this ruin, she still doesn't know what she was looking for. Just asked. What I'm looking for is Crescent Moon Quiguo. Yu-Ru gritted her teeth slightly. Crescent Moon green fruit? Xiao Yan said with a frown. My father spent a lot of money to collect information. In this relic, there are not only opportunities left by a senior, but also many treasures, among which the Emperor-level magic core you need is also among them. And our Yu family has inherited the inheritance since ancient times, but it lacks this vital medicine. Crescent Moon green fruit. Yu-Ru Bei bit her lips and said to Xiao Yan, even though her father repeatedly explained not to talk to Xiao Yan, but Xiao Yan saved her father, and Yueru didn't plan to hide it from him. Crescent Moon green fruit? This is a good thing. You kid don't know it. In addition to some wonders of the world, there are also some special medicines. Their effects are to accept inheritance or break the seal. We call it medicine introduction. This crescent green fruit is a good thing. It is the representative of the moon. It seems that there is some background behind this little ant named Yueru, otherwise such an ancient inheritance would not be her turn. The voice of the Golden Dragon King came from the ring. After walking slowly into the lane, he followed the map and entered a mountain range. The information on the map showed that Crescent Moon green fruit was hiding here. The mountain in front of them seemed to have someone in front of them for a long time, and some ferocious beasts were cleaned up in an instant. As expected of the outstanding young people who are within 100 miles of Qingcheng, he does have some skills. Falling to the ground, Xiao Yan glanced ahead, laughed in his heart, and immediately turned his eyes to the surroundings. His brows could not help but wrinkle. The energy mist is too thick, and the Tianmu Mountains are so vast, it is not easy to reach the depths of the Crescent Moon green fruit. Don't worry, follow them and let them take the lead. Xiao Yan also saw Yu-Ru's worries, and hurriedly spoke to comfort. Yeah. Yu-Ru also knew that thinking too much was useless, so she immediately restrained her breath and followed Xiao Yan to prepare to wait for an opportunity. Between Xiao Yan's frown, a graceful colorful shadow also fell into the mountain range, and the beautiful eyes swept away, and instantly stopped on a back not far ahead. Feeling the slight movement behind him, Xiao Yan didn't turn his head, but when he moved, he swiftly walked away directly into the mountain range. Stop! Seeing that Xiao Yan was going to leave, the woman in the colorful dress immediately shouted coldly. Xiao Yan didn't seem to hear her shouting, but his footsteps accelerated. Shush! Just as the pace quickened, a sound of breaking wind suddenly resounded behind him. Xiao Yan's face was slightly cold, and his footsteps made a mistake. A colorful silk satin with strong winds smeared its head and shot out, and finally pierced a towering giant tree in front of it. Although the colored satin seems to be made of cloth, it has a faint metallic luster, which is obviously not an ordinary thing. Seeing Xiao Yan's strange steps to avoid his own attack, a strange luster flashed in the beautiful eyes of the woman in the colorful dress. With a flick of her jade hand, another colorful silk and satin shot out from her sleeve, like a poisonous snake, winding in the air. Twisted and wrapped around Xiaoyan cunningly. Faced with this woman's constant entanglement, Xiaoyan's heart was also filled with some anger. He suddenly turned around, his arm flashed out with lightning, grabbed the burst of silk. Milky white flames emerged from his palm, and immediately followed the silk, turning into a line of fire, shoot directly at the former. Seeing the line of fire coming, the cheeks of the woman in the colorful skirt were also slightly cold, and a burst of blue and silver alternated, as if the powerful fighting spirit formed by the fusion of strong wind and thunder also shot out along the silk and satin, and finally collided with the line of fire. Bang! A low-pitched explosion erupted in the quiet mountain range, and the aftermath of the two strong and powerful waves directly shook the surrounding dense fog away a lot, and there was a pit more than half a meter deep in the open space. At this moment, a lot of people have begun to break into the mountain range. When they heard the movement here, they all rushed forward. When they saw that the person who left was actually the famous Miss Feng Yi, they were all shocked. Surprised eyes turned to the strange man on the opposite side. The person who could fight with her would definitely not be an ordinary person. The fighting spirit formed by the fusion of the wind and thunder attributes? The name of Miss Feng Leicheng is indeed well deserved. Although the colorful silk satin has experienced such a violent energy impact, it has never broken like this. Xiaoyan's eyes are fixed on the woman in the colorful skirt. Said slowly, he didn't expect that this woman actually has two types of physique. This type of physique may not be as rare as the evil poison physique, but it is also quite rare. To be honest, Xiaoyan can also be counted as two types of attributes. The physique, fire and wood. Of course, its physique is that fire accounts for the majority, and wood, just a little bit, of course, every alchemist. This is the case. You reading link to www.youkanshu.com because it is necessary condition. The physique of the two attributes is actually not very suitable for cultivation, because it is not pure. Xiaoyan's kind is not bad. There is only a little wood energy in the body, but the woman in front of him not only can cultivate this part, but also actually the perfect fusion of the two attributes of Do Qi. The power suddenly soared. You can break my attack, you are also very powerful. The woman in the colorful dress stared at the thin young man in front of her with beautiful eyes, suddenly smiled, and stretched out her flawless white hand and said softly, "Go out and rely on friends. Make a friend, my name is Feng Yi." As soon as these words came out, the people around them were shocked. They knew how arrogant the eldest lady of Fenglei City in front of them was, and now she actually reached out to a strange man to make friends. "Hello, Xiaoyan." Xiaoyan also stretched out his hand to the woman in front of him. The two held it tightly, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The soul of the emperor, as expected, is right. With each other, Miss Feng Yi's soul is not weak. After speaking, they both released their hands in unison. "Let's go, Yu Ru." Xiaoyan also greeted Yu Ru, who was beside him. It's really hard to meet someone who is interested, but it seems that his soul power is stronger than mine. However, if you want to be my man, you can't just have a strong soul. Follow them. I want to see what they are going to do if they have a good chance. The woman in the colorful skirt said. "But miss, the master told me before coming out that we should focus on chance." "I'll say one more thing. Follow them." The woman in the colorful dress frowned slightly, even though she followed Xiaoyan and the others, continuing from the previous episode 34. Entering the depths of the mountains, I suddenly found a lake. There was a small island on the lake. On the island, there was a slender crystal clear plant, exuding a huge and pleasant smell. Where should it be? Xiaoyan and Yueru found that the number of people was getting smaller and smaller on the way to this mountain range. This fog is poisonous. Xiaoyan immediately understood why the number of people became less and less as he went deeper. It turned out to be the cause of the fog. No. Xiaoyan handed a medicinal pill to Yueru, and then the emperor's soul power was fully deployed, and he carefully probed into the lake. Generally speaking, wherever there are wonders of heaven and earth, there will be guardians, so it is better to be careful in everything. Why didn't you find it? Xiaoyan couldn't help muttering to himself, and then he gave Yueru a few heavy instructions and went straight to the small island in the lake. His body burst into the clear lake like a fish. Xiaoyan glanced at the milky white flames outside his body, and couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Under the temperature, the surrounding lake water has been rolling like boiling water, and while the milky white blisters are constantly bubbling, wisps of dark purple liquid that is difficult to detect with the naked eye slowly emerge. But when these dark purple liquids are about to be when it came into contact with the milky white flame, it was frozen by Xiao Yi into extremely small ice strands, and then slowly fell into the bottom of the lake. Xiao Yan's scalp felt numb as he looked at the small purple ice strands that kept appearing all over his body. He didn't expect that this seemingly peaceful lake would secretly hide so much deadly venom. Hurry up, these venoms are extremely poisonous. Although the protection of a different fire can prevent them from entering the body, it is too much for my soul power. Just as Yueru was amazed, Xiao Yan's a deep voice suddenly sounded in my heart. Huh. He nodded hurriedly, and then followed Xiao Yan's feet. His head floated to the surface, looked at the small island in the center of the lake, let out a sigh of relief, and then swept his arms rapidly, leaving a watermark on his body. Gradually approaching the lake, looking at the perfect figure in the water that was highlighted because the clothes were wet, Xiao Yan couldn't help swallowing because of his concentration. The two mountain peaks below the cherry mouth were about to stand, and there was only a trace of silk. Tightly sticking to the white and flawless skin, it sets off a different kind of taste. He paddled smoothly all the way to the position that was close to the island in the center of the lake, and just when Xiao Yan was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the calm lake in front of him suddenly burst into the sky. Tight raised his head and stared at the place where the spray burst, and after a moment, his pupils suddenly shrank. The water splashes gradually fell. In an instant, a giant snake with green scales all over its body and a triangular-shaped head suddenly rushed out from the bottom of the lake, then opened its huge mouth and bit Xiao Yan fiercely. There was a wild ferocity in his pupils. 3,000 thunder phantom bodies. When the ferocious giant snake's mouth was about to attack Xiao Yan, a lightning-fast movement technique flashed past, causing the giant snake to rush into the air. Illusory golden demon python? The Golden Dragon King's exclamation came from inside the ring. Master, what is that? Xiao Yan also felt a strange power from the python's attack just now. Illusory golden monster python, this is a powerful magical beast known for its soul power. Their most powerful power is neither the body nor the strength, but the power of the soul. The illusory golden monster python has a profound knowledge of soul power. It has been able to use its soul power to create a perfect illusion, which makes it sleepy for a long time and does not want to wake up. That's what makes it terrifying. But fortunately, your soul strength is not weak, but it is protected by a strange fire, so it can't cause too much damage to you. The violent factor of the strange fire is naturally the biggest nemesis of these dark attribute snakes. You can look at other companions, have fallen into this illusion now. The Golden Dragon King looked at the ferocious giant snake in front of him and said, I'll hold it back, hurry up and fetch the crescent moon green fruit. Xiao Yan also gritted his teeth and said to Yu Ru, although the illusory gold demon python in front of him was comparable to a 4-star Do Di, but with the blessing of his own strange fire, it was not difficult to fight, so he immediately said to Yueru. Bang! 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 The figure violently swept towards the island. There were a few violent waves bursting behind him, which was the momentum caused by the failure of the giant snake's attack. Xiao Yan didn't pay too much attention to the strong aura behind him. With the help of this impact, he escaped several attacks from giant snakes, and finally he was only 10 meters away from the island. Glancing back from the corner of his eyes, he found that the giant snake was chasing and killing it all the way with its huge mouth open. With a slight sneer, Xiao Yan flicked his finger to accept the ring, and a wooden board fell into the water surface. A moment before it was about to be corroded by the venom in the lake, Xiao Yan's toes touched it, his body sank slightly, and then violently again shot out, a moment later. Finally entered the scope of the island. UU reading link to www.ukanshu.com. Body volleyed over, his feet squatted slightly. Both palms pressed lightly on the ground and landed steadily. Stepping on the island with his soles, Xiao Yan glanced back and found that from the time it entered a 10-meter range around the island, the ferocious giant snake was a little scared and did not dare to move forward, swaying on its tail outside the island. The wanderer, spitting out a scarlet snake letter, glared at Xiao Yan fiercely, and kept wandering around the island. Looking at the slowly calming lake and the giant snake still guarding the island, Xiao Yan breathed a sigh of relief, turned around, and looked at the small island, which is not very large. which are planted with lush bamboo forests and some flowers and plants, which look vibrant and beautiful. Have you found it, Yueru? Xiao Yan finally broke free from the giant snake and hurriedly went to the island to ask this. Looking at the few round fruits on the crystal-clear little tree in front of her, Yueru couldn't help falling into contemplation. According to the information his father gave him, shouldn't crescent moon Quiguo look like this? Could it be that this crescent moon has mutated due to the environment? Thank you too for leading the way. A gloomy laughter emerged from the void, and Yueru took away all the fruits on the small tree at the moment of her fascination. Looking carefully, under the white curtain on his cheeks, a young face that was pale and bloodless emerged. His eyes were gray, and his body seemed to be wrapped in the aura of death, which made people shudder. Farewell, there will be an appointment later. After speaking, he disappeared on the island like a ghost. When Xiao Yan first saw the mysterious man, he felt a strong strength, but the ancient ruler of the fire behind him was about to shoot, but was gently suppressed by Yuru's small hand. It wasn't the crescent moon jade that person took.